In life, sometimes unexpected encounters can change the way we perceive people and the world around us. Moments that seem ordinary at first glance often carry profound and valuable lessons. One such memorable story took place at the bustling Los Angeles International Airport, where crowds of travelers hurried about with suitcases of various shapes and colors. Amid the fast-paced modern life, a remarkable event unfolded, leaving an indelible impression on everyone who witnessed it. Mr. William, a 70-year-old man with silver-white hair and a kind demeanor, was standing in line for first-class passengers. His appearance didn't exude glamour or wealth. Instead, his simplicity and elegance brought a strange warmth and sincerity to those around him. He wore a modest gray sweater, slightly worn at the sleeves, paired with simple khaki trousers and well-used leather shoes. The small suitcase he held in his hand was marked by the passage of time, a silent witness to a life filled with experiences. While his outward appearance didn't draw immediate attention, a closer look revealed a sense of peace and self-assurance that radiated from this man. Standing near Mr. William in line was Victor Harding, a middle-aged businessman. Unlike Mr. William's humble demeanor, Victor stood out with his confident, almost arrogant presence. He wore an expensive, but well-tailored suit, impeccably polished shoes that gleamed under the airport lights, and a designer watch glinting on his wrist. Victor was the type of person anyone could identify at first glance: successful, wealthy, and acutely aware of his own value. However, behind his polished exterior, Victor's attitude often left others feeling uneasy. When Victor's gaze fell on Mr. William, a hint of disdain crossed his face. It seemed that Mr. William, with his unassuming appearance, didn't belong in the first-class space that Victor believed was reserved for people like him. Unable to suppress his condescension, Victor spoke up, his voice laced with sarcasm. "First-class ticket, huh?" Victor asked, a mocking smile curling on his lips. "It's amazing who can end up here thanks to luck." The remark caught not only Mr. William's attention, but also drew the notice of those standing nearby. The atmosphere suddenly grew tense as people turned their eyes toward the two men, their expressions a mix of surprise, curiosity, and quiet disapproval of Victor's behavior. But instead of showing anger or irritation, Mr. William simply turned to Victor. A gentle smile appeared on his face, as though he was accustomed to handling such situations. "That's right," Mr. William replied, his warm and calm voice resonating. "Life is always full of surprises." William's response wasn't just a polite remark. It was a subtle lesson directed at Victor. However, Victor seemed oblivious to this. Instead of feeling embarrassed, he continued to exhibit his smug attitude, deliberately emphasizing the perceived difference between himself and Mr. William. The people around them began to murmur quietly. Some were visibly annoyed by Victor's behavior, while others looked at Mr. William with newfound admiration. Despite being subjected to an insult, he maintained his composure, refusing to let his emotions dictate his actions. Standing there, Mr. William showed no intention of justifying or explaining himself. His calm demeanor and poise were a stark contrast to Victor's boastful arrogance, reflecting the clear difference between the two men. One rich in material wealth and the other abundant in spirit. The brief exchange between Victor and Mr. William was merely the beginning of a series of events that would unfold, offering meaningful lessons about compassion, humility, and the true measure of a person's worth. What happened next didn't just alter Victor's perspective, but also taught everyone present a profound truth. It's not outward appearances or social status that define a person's value, but their attitude toward life and how they treat others. As the flight commenced and passengers settled into their seats, the story took an unexpected turn. Victor, still basking in his sense of superiority, paid little attention to the unfolding events. Meanwhile, Mr. William quietly made his way into the first-class cabin, choosing a seat by the window and pulling out an old, well-used to read. Contrary to Victor's expectations, Mr. William's presence in first class began to draw the attention of other passengers. A flight attendant, who seemed familiar with Mr. William, approached him with a warm, respectful tone. "Welcome back, Mr. William. We're honored to have you with us again." This simple statement immediately caught Victor off guard. The curious stares from other passengers now shifted toward Mr. William. The unassuming gentleman was clearly not the ordinary traveler Victor had assumed. Instead, it was evident that he carried a story far beyond what appearances could reveal. Despite the attention, Mr. William remained humble, offering a gracious smile to the flight attendant and thanking her in his calm, soft-spoken manner. What followed was a series of touching and insightful moments, where passengers learned more about Mr. William's extraordinary life. These moments didn't just serve as a revelation for Victor, but also reminded everyone present of the importance of treating others with respect and compassion. This story stands as a testament to the fact that we should never judge people solely by their outward appearances, as some of the most valuable lessons and qualities lie beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. The long flight from New York to Los Angeles, although a familiar journey for Victor, brought him an unforgettable experience and life lessons. Victor was a young man, full of ambition, always proud of his success in work and life. With his bright appearance and fashionable attire, he felt like the center of attention. As a young director of a large company, he always lived in a world full of luxury, where everything had to follow the standards he deemed important. When he boarded the plane, he had no idea that a person he would consider inferior to him would sit next to him throughout the flight. As soon as he entered the first-class cabin, Victor quickly noticed that the seat next to him was already taken. It was an elderly man, dressed in simple clothes, without any flashy appearance. Victor's first glance was one of disdain, and he felt smug, thinking that Mr. William was certainly just an ordinary person with nothing special about him. When sitting down, Victor couldn't suppress his sarcasm. While adjusting his expensive suit and feeling proud of everything he had, Mr. William, in his plain attire, simply smiled calmly. The contrast between the two was glaring, and it made Victor feel even more compelled to prove his superiority. "What do you do for a living that you can fly first class?" Victor asked, in a mocking tone. He sat up straight, trying to appear confident, as if he had the right to be above everyone around him. Mr. William calmly looked at Victor, unaffected by the somewhat insulting question. He didn't rush to respond, but instead looked out the plane window with a serene gaze. After a moment, he replied quietly, "I retired after teaching for over 40 years." Victor couldn't contain his surprise. He felt that Mr. William's humility was quite strange. "A teacher?" Victor asked again, almost not believing it. "You must have saved up your whole life just to be able to fly first class like this, right?" At this point, Mr. William remained unchanged in his expression, simply smiling gently. "Maybe," he said calmly, but without any sense of arrogance, just a simple sharing about his life. Victor still didn't back down. He wanted to make the conversation even more tense, to make Mr. William feel inferior to his supposed success. "A teacher? That's a low-paying job," Victor said, with clear disdain. "So how can you live well and fly first class with what you've done?" Mr. William didn't feel offended at all. Instead, he continued to remain calm, unhurried, not angry. "Being a teacher isn't easy," he said. "It requires patience, love, and sacrifice. But the most important thing is that I taught my students values that can't be measured in money. Values like compassion, respect, and gratitude." Victor still didn't stop criticizing. He felt that Mr. William was too dreamy and unrealistic. "You talk about good values, but do they really help you live the life you want?" Victor asked, sarcastically. "You must have lived a very simple life, right?" The contrast between the two became even clearer as the flight continued. While Victor kept talking about wealth and social status, Mr. William never had a negative reaction. In fact, he even calmly shared with Victor about his students, many of whom now held important positions in society, successful people who had made an impact. He told Victor that the greatest happiness of his life was witnessing his students grow up and live by the values he had imparted to them. "My students, they are successful not because they have a lot of money or fame, but because they live a life with purpose and meaning," Mr. William said. "That's what I'm most proud of, not first-class flights or expensive watches." The more Victor listened, the more frustrated he became. He couldn't understand why Mr. William could accept such a simple life. To Victor, everything had to be measured by material success. He couldn't comprehend that there were other values in life that couldn't be quantified by money or fame. Throughout the flight, other passengers began to take notice of the conversation between the two. Mr. Williams' calm responses, though simple, were filled with wisdom, and many people admired his composure. They saw peace and intellect in the way he addressed every question from Victor. While Victor kept flaunting and trying to attack, Mr. Williams simply shared the core values he believed in. Finally, as the flight neared its end, one of the passengers sitting nearby, who had overheard most of the conversation, decided to share a piece of information that left Victor stunned. "You probably don't know, but Mr. William here isn't just an ordinary man," the passenger said. "He's one of the most influential teachers in the community, someone who taught many people, including some who are now in important positions in society." At this moment, Victor could hardly believe his ears. He felt like the world around him had collapsed. A man he had judged as nothing special was someone who had made a significant impact on many people's lives. The truth made Victor realize that what he had considered important was nothing compared to Mr. Williams' contributions. "Mr. William didn't just teach," the passenger continued. "He's a real teacher, someone who built a great legacy, not from money or fame, but from his compassion and dedication to the profession." At this point, Victor felt like he had been struck by a shock. He couldn't say anything. He didn't know what to do. Everything he had thought about Mr. William and his own life seemed to have fallen apart. A man he had mocked turned out to be someone with significant achievements, and he, with all the things he thought were important, couldn't compare. As the flight landed, Victor couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. He not only realized that Mr. William was a man worthy of respect, but he also understood that his attitude and perspective on life had been wrong all along. A feeling of regret began to spread within him. At that moment, there was no more arrogance. He turned to Mr. William with a sincere look in his eyes. "Mr. William, I'm sorry for the inappropriate words I said earlier," Victor said, his tone no longer mocking or disdainful. "I had no idea you were such a great teacher, and I was wrong to underestimate you. I truly apologize." Mr. William simply smiled, his gaze warm and full of forgiveness. "It's okay, Victor. Life is a journey of learning. Everyone has their own lessons to learn," he replied calmly, just as he had throughout the flight. As everyone disembarked from the plane, Victor couldn't stop thinking about this encounter. A simple meeting, but it changed the way he saw life and the true values of a person. He realized that while he had only been chasing fame and money, Mr. William had lived a life full of meaning. Values that couldn't be measured by anything material. The feeling of regret and reflection stayed with Victor in the days that followed. This flight had given him a profound lesson in life that he would never forget. This meeting between Victor and Mr. William was not just a moment on the flight, but a profound lesson about life, humility, and mutual respect, values that transcend time and never go out of style. Throughout the flight, Victor went from arrogance and pride to an inevitable awakening as he realized that the things he had once considered the most important, wealth, status, and material success, were nothing but temporary factors that could easily change. In the end, the truly enduring values are how we treat each other, the relationships we build, and the kindness and compassion we show one another. Mr. Williams' story and his simple yet powerful words about living a meaningful life were not lectures about knowledge or great achievements, but rather a straightforward tale of living with purpose. His humility made Victor, as well as the people around him, reflect on themselves. The long flight from New York to Los Angeles wasn't just a journey through space, but a spiritual journey, an opportunity to realize the lessons we sometimes overlook in our busy lives. When Victor realized that Mr. William was not just a teacher, but someone who had lived a life full of meaning, he began to sense a transformation in his own mindset. This transformation didn't happen instantly, but gradually. At first, he couldn't understand why someone could live so simply, why someone would forgo material comforts that he always saw as the measure of success. But as he listened to Mr. William talk about the students he had mentored, many of whom were now successful and impactful individuals, Victor started to realize that these values were what truly mattered. Money and fame may fade over time, but the positive impacts we have on the lives of others, the lasting relationships we form, will endure forever. That flight opened a whole new perspective for Victor, making him realize that arrogance and judging others based on appearances not only fail to bring real fulfillment, but also cause us to miss valuable opportunities to learn from the people around us. It was only through humility, patience, and mutual respect that we could open new doors in life, connect with others, and make our lives more meaningful. This story reminds us all that even the smallest actions can have a profound impact. Simple acts of kindness, a genuine word, sometimes just a smile or a thoughtful gesture, can change someone's day for the better. And if we continue to live with compassion, respect, and humility, we will spread these values to the world, making it a better place. Perhaps each of us has moments when we become caught up in the pursuit of fame and fortune, but this story reminds us that success is not measured by material things. True success is how we treat each other, the love and kindness we give to those around us. If we learn to put ourselves in others' shoes and view life with empathy and compassion, we will realize that the simplest things can bring the greatest joy. With every step in life, we will learn that true success isn't about achieving everything we want, but about living a life that matters, leaving a positive mark on those around us. Every kind act, every word full of compassion contributes to building a better world where everyone is respected and loved. This story is not just a lesson about humility and respect for one another. It's also a reminder that if we want to change the world, we must start with small, sincere actions every day. If we want the world to be a better place, we need to change how we treat each other, starting now. That's the foundation for building a connected community, where everyone is valued and loved, where true values are cherished above all else. And if you enjoy stories like this, please subscribe to the Life Stories 365 channel to help spread compassion and the good values in life. Each story we share is not only a lesson about life, but an opportunity for us to change together, to create good things for the world around us. Let's join together on this journey of exploring true values and making the world a better place every day.